Hi, thanks for joining us for Boredom Busters with the Reach Museum. Today, we are going to be making salt crystals. So the first thing we're gonna need to do is start heating some water. I've measured out 2 cups here, so that's ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna turn my heating device up to 200 degrees. I have a little dial here that shows me exactly how hot this gets, which is handy because I know that water boils at 212 degrees, and I want my water to be just a little bit under boiling. So while that heats up, let me show you what else I have here. I've got salt. This is what our crystal is going to grow from. I have a tablespoon to measure our salt. I have a tall, clear glass. It doesn't have to be clear, but it's more fun that way. It's easier to see what's happening. And I have a pencil with a little bit of thread tied to it, with a little bit of metal tied to that. If you have a paper clip, that would work really well here. It's just so that when we put our thread into our solution, that it won't float up to the top. This will keep it hanging down. And I measured this really carefully so that when I put it into my cup, it doesn't quite touch the bottom, but it gets very close. Right, I see a little bit of steam starting to come off of our water, which means it's probably ready for us to start stirring in some salt. Okay, I'm going to start with 2 big tablespoons. So, we're going to stir our salt into our water until it totally disappears, dissolves, and our water's clear again. So the water's clear again. I don't see any salt. So I'm going to put a little bit more in. I'm going to put 1 more tablespoon. I'm just going to add it 1 tablespoon at a time from now on. So we know that that salt dissolves in water, right? And that's what we're seeing as our water's becoming clear again. All of the salt that we poured in has dissolved and spread out among the water. Oh. I see some little bubbles at the bottom of my pan, so I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. We don't want it to be boiling. So, once it's clear again, we're going to go ahead and just add more salt. What we're looking for is the point where our water-salt mixture becomes a supersaturated solution. That is just a really fancy way of saying that it has as much salt in it as there can possibly be. It can't hold any more. No more will be able to dissolve because all of the possible space in the water is being taken up by that salt. We'll know that that happens when we pour a tablespoon of salt in, and instead of seeing it all dissolve and our water become clear again, we'll see little salt crystals drop and form at the bottom of our pan. Okay, we're going to add another tablespoon. Stir, stir, stir. I'm just going to keep adjusting the heat to make sure it's not boiling, but it stays as warm as it can be without boiling. If you're at home using your stove and you don't have a dial that tells you exactly how warm it is, you probably just want to stay somewhere between medium and medium-high heat. Okay, let's see. Almost all of this salt is dissolved. I think we might be able to pour just a little bit more. Oh, maybe not. Okay, I'm going to show you what I'm seeing here, which is that with that last tablespoon of salt, we have some little crystals staying in there. I hope you can see the salt has sort of clumped together. So what we're going to do now is turn off the heat completely. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just unplug my heating element. And we're going to give it just a moment to start to cool down. So the next thing that we're going to do is to pour our supersaturated solution into our tall glass. And then we'll be able to dangle in our thread. So the reason that we're using a piece of thread is that it's got a lot of texture. It's made of fabric, right? Or it's what fabric is made of, is thread. So there's a lot of texture in here. I know you can't see it there, but the salt will be able to stick to the thread as our supersaturated solution starts to cool down. Now, as it cools down, the water won't have quite as much space in it anymore between the molecules to hold all of that salt, and the salt will have to leave the water. So hopefully the salt will stick to our string. It will probably stick to the bottom of our glass and maybe to some of the edges, which is why we don't want this to be touching the bottom of our glass. We want some crystals to form on our string and not get stuck where we have to break them. Okay, I think this is probably cooled down enough. Now my pan has a special lip on the edge here that makes this a little bit easier. I'm going to very carefully pour my supersaturated solution into my cup. Okay, and we're just going to fill it up as high as we can. There we go. Oops. And now we'll dangle our thread in, being careful not to touch the sides. Some of those salt crystals that ended up making it to the bottom here have made their way in. My water's not clear anymore. Okay, now I'm just going to leave this in a place where I know it's not going to be bothered. It might be nice to put something over the top so that dust and that kind of stuff doesn't get in. One easy thing is just a coffee filter. So I'll take this and I'll just, let's see, just set it on top like this. Okay, there we go. All right, and then we'll check back in maybe a day, 2 days, to see if we've got any crystals forming on our thread. All right, we'll check back in later in the week. Until then, happy experimenting. Hope to see you tomorrow for our other Boredom Buster activities. Bye.